1. This happened when I was maybe 17. I was at a buddy's house and we were smoking and drinking. Regular high school weekend activities. After smoking I felt nauseous, so I told my buddy I need to go lay down. He let me lay in his extra room. I went upstairs and lay face down into the pillow with my head resting in or on my arm, so that my face wasn't touching the pillow but rather my arm. I distinctly remember there being a TV at the foot of the bed, and it was on the TV Guide channel. The old version that would scroll and had little videos playing. It was quite distracting while I was trying to relax. So as I was laying there, I remember I lifted my head and turned to look behind me while laying down to see the TV. The TV Guide was playing an interview from the show 24 with the actor who played Jack Bauer. My vision didn't seem normal at this time. It was almost Sin City-ish, the movie, where it looks animated but with a strobe like going off and raining. Very strange. It was at that exact moment that my head was back in my arm and had restarted the sequence of events. I turned my head to notice TV Guide interviewing Jack Bauer. But then a new step in the sequence was added. My friend's sister walked in the room. Once she walked in, I was back in my arm looking back at the TV, then to looking at the door because of the sister walking in. She turns on the light, and I'm back in my arm looking at the interview, anticipating his sister to walk in. But I must add, I wasn't aware that it was repeating in the moment. She then yells to me to see if I need to use the bathroom. I get up, take a piss, and I'm back on the bed repeating all these things. Looking at the TV, seeing the sister come in, lights on, asking if I need to use the bathroom. It was at this time I began to freak out. I knew that everything was repeating, but when the sequence started each time, it would add a new event to my timeline. This felt like it went on for hours, all the way until I went home and my dad found out that I had been smoking. I thought that I was almost predicting my future, short of going home, because I never left. But in this sequence I had played out each step until I did go home. The next day I woke up normal like I had partied the night before, but in fact was in the room for a majority of the time. The craziest part about this, though, is for a couple of months after this event, I could trigger this feeling I had while I was laying down, almost like duplicating the feeling to get that high of tripping out. I remember the first time I was at school and in class and I unintentionally had my head on my arm resting. Someone called my name behind me where the TV was in the room. I turned around to talk to the kid behind me, and it triggered this weird euphoric state, similar to when I was at my friend's. Not as strong as the original. I knew I was tapping into something in my brain. After I found out I could trigger it, I would do it randomly in class just to feel it again. Each time it diminished in strength until I couldn't trigger it anymore. I still to this day cannot explain what happened to me that night. But it was the strangest thing that has happened to me, besides an out-of-body experience. Any feedback or similar experiences would be welcomed. Want to know what you think. I may be leaving some things out, but for the most part that sums it up. Thank you. 2. So the other day I was at work and it was pretty slow. I was chilling in the kitchen having a conversation with my boss. We were having a discussion about luck because we both think we have the world's shittiest luck. I was telling him about how when bad things happen to me, it's always weird and super specific, and my friends always say they're things that would only happen to me. I'm always just in the wrong place at the wrong time type of thing. The universe is out to get me, etc., etc. I'm thinking, damn, hope I'm not jinxing anything right now, when my boss hands me an order for delivery. I return from the delivery and I'm in my chair sitting in the parking lot about to go back inside. I reach for the door handle, but I see that it is locked. I think about how odd it is because the delivery I made was to a regular customer that was only about a minute away, so I could not recall locking my car within the minute I drove back. I had a weird feeling about it but brushed it off and went back inside. About 10 minutes later I got another delivery. I arrived at the house, parked in the driveway, gave them their food and returned to my car. When I tried to open the door, I was completely shocked to find it locked. I had no idea why it would be locked. My car was still running and my phone was on the seat, so I had to go back and ring the customer's doorbell and ask if I could use their phone. Luckily, they were the nicest people ever, and let me use their phone and hang out at their house while I waited for a cop to show up and unlock my car for me. Shout out to those customers for real. Anyway, so at first I was mad at myself because I thought I must have accidentally locked my car when I left out of habit, even though I had never locked my keys in my car like that before. I just assumed I must have done something stupid because why would I assume it was a glitch right away? It wasn't till about 15 minutes after it happened I realized I was carrying 2 bags of food and multiple things in my hands when I left my car, so it would be pretty illogical and impossible for me to lock the car door, especially without remembering. And then I remembered how my car door was locked earlier that shift when I returned to the restaurant. I was like, is my car locking itself? After the police came and opened my car for me, I noticed that the door locked 2 more times while I was in it that night. So it literally was just locking by itself. It has never done that before that day and has not done it since. It only occurred during that shift, after I talked all about how crazy my bad luck is. If that isn't the universe blatantly fucking with me, I don't know what is. Don't complain about your bad luck, guys. You're gonna jinx yourself. 3. About 7 years ago, I was hanging out with my friends in a part of the neighborhood I wouldn't usually hang out at. It was literally a few minutes away from where I lived, but we'd usually hang out in the other side of town. My group of friends was slowly merging into another group of friends that lived over there, so naturally I followed and went over there to be with everyone. One night we were walking down the usual street to go at our usual spot, at a nearby school, and then a few guys from the new group just came down the street that was perpendicular to the street we were on, right as we were passing that street. Well, just met on the corner of those streets to do your typical teenager handshake. I'm sure you all did. Then walked to the spot together. I had already met everyone there except for this one guy called Alexis. When we came face to face to do our handshake, we literally paused for at least an entire minute, not exaggerating, just looking at each other, absolutely confused by what was happening. Then we both asked at almost the same time, have we seen each other before? We know each other. You're familiar as fuck. And we kept asking about family members or friends we knew or hung out with, in case we could have met before when younger. But there was absolutely nothing. In fact, he had actually recently moved in from another town where there is absolutely no way in hell we would have met before, because I had never left our small suburb up until that point, and he had never come to our area until a few weeks ago when he moved in. There was something about his face and his demeanor that was so familiar. For some reasons, we both just clicked at the same time when we saw each other's face, like we could both swear we knew each other really well. I never experienced anything like that before. It was such a strong and mutual feeling of, it feels like I've seen your face thousands of times before. This was one of the weirdest memories I have. I do have a bunch of other things to share that you guys would probably scratch your head at, like me remembering some very old dreams and constantly revisiting them, actually progressing in those different dreams every time, but it feels like time jumped a bit in between every time. But those can more easily be explained or dismissed in my opinion. This one just boggles my mind, you have no idea how. Nobody else thought it was weird. They all just thought we were freaking out over nothing. But we could not understand how this was possible. I still can't. I haven't seen him in forever, and haven't talked much to him ever since because he was a bit older than me and eventually started hanging out with another group of people. So I stopped seeing him. But this made me feel like asking him again to see what he thinks now that we're much older. 4. This story is probably going to sound fake. My husband thinks I'm nuts every time I try to tell him about it. No one ever believes us because it is quite possibly the craziest thing that has happened to us or anyone we know. But here goes nothing. When I was in 2nd grade, my family moved us into this rental house. It wasn't a new home, but it wasn't considered old either. During the year that we lived there, my mom, 2 brothers and I all experienced something out of the ordinary at least one time. My dad, at the time, worked nights and volunteered in the local fire department, so, lucky him, he was hardly ever home. This event that took place is my mother's experience, but we were all, with the exception of my father, at home at the time. It was about 2 a.m., and my mom was sound asleep in her room when she heard a knock on her bedroom window. She was freaked out, but decided to look behind the curtain anyway. There stood a friend of my dad's who happened to be a police officer. We will call him Sam. Sam asked my mom to meet him at the front door because he had something to tell her. Worried a bit, my mom headed to the door because even though it was weird, she did know the guy, and he had never done anything odd before. So she meets him at the door and he tells her, "Jane, your car has been broken into. We need you to come outside to make sure nothing is missing." My mom looks behind him and sure enough, the door to her car is wide open. But something doesn't feel right. It's 2 a.m. and she's tired and a little freaked. She tells Sam, "Just shut the door and I'll check it out in the morning." But Sam decides to be oddly persistent. "You really need to come check it out so we can file a report. It's important." Red flags are flying up everywhere, and now my mom is just downright scared. Something is very weird about the whole situation. "No, shut my car door and I will give you a call in the morning." They argued about it a little more before she finally convinced him to leave, and she locked the door and went back to bed. Fast forward to 7 a.m. My dad comes home from the night shift and wakes my mom up. "Why is your car door open?" My mom at this point is just annoyed. "Sam came over at 2 this morning and told me the car had been broken into. I told him to shut the car door, but he didn't listen to me, I guess." My dad looks extremely confused. "Sam? Sam Davis?" My mom nods. "Yeah, Sam, your cop friend." My dad then tells my mom that last night, around 11 p.m. or midnight, 2 to 3 hours before he showed up at her window, Sam was called out to go check out something at someone's home in town. He ended up falling into an empty well they had on their property, and had been in the hospital in a coma since. Sam ended up being fine, and neither my mom nor my dad ever asked him about it. My mom checked out her car and nothing was missing. And Sam, and no other cop, ever asked my parents about their car being broken into. 17 years later, and it still scares all of us to think or talk about it. My mom says she really feels like if she had followed him outside that night, she wouldn't be here to talk about it today. We had a lot of strange things happen the year we lived in that house. But this event takes the cake. 5. So my first story was in 2005. I was 10 at the time, but my mom had seen the event too, so I know I didn't make it up. Let me set the scene. We lived out not in the sticks, but close to them enough so that the backyard was maybe 30 meters of clear land before the woods, as we called it down here in Louisiana. We lived in what was essentially a trailer, but built on site rather than an actual mobile home. It was a warm day, a time between summer and fall when the humidity lifts up, and we get temperatures ranging from high 80s in the day and low 40s at night. We had 2 dogs at the time, bark at anything and everything. The event happened around 4 in the evening, and I was inside playing video games. My mom had the back door open smoking a cigarette, when she starts yelling at a dog chasing a cat around outside a fence in the area that took up most of the backyard, but was still small. The woods, we always knew something was off about them. Always said it was haunted, but the dog was chasing the cat, and we recognized this dog as a dog we assumed dead that had gone missing about 4 to 5 years before. He would have been 20 years old at the time of the event, which isn't unusual in Pomeranians. However, they ran into the woods. I got my shoes on as fast as I could and ran after them. About 50 yards into the woods I stop and look around. There's no dog, no cat, no sound. The only thing making sound is me. It is in the 80s. There should be insects everywhere. The last few birds should be around getting ready to leave for winter, but there's nothing. And the hair stood straight up from the back of my neck, as if someone was right behind me breathing on my neck. I turn around and nothing. I run out of the woods, go back inside and tell my mom what happened. We just kinda shrugged it off, but to this day those woods will always haunt me. Flash forward to 2013. Deep into the woods there was a treehouse built and supported by 3 medium-sized trees. Thin enough to wrap an arm completely around, and still able to touch your chest. At this point the treehouse had been there for about 10 years, still sturdy as ever, no wood rot, and the tree still flourished. It had been maybe 4 months since anyone had gone back there, and one day around the same time of year as the last event, I go back there just for shits and giggles. The treehouse is gone, burned down, but it's just the 3 trees and leaves in a square around where the boards would have stood. You have to understand the woods are very, very dry around this time of year, and 20 years of dead leaves are very, very flammable, but nothing outside the shape of the house was scorched. Flash to April of 2017 and there's no remnants of it left. No tree stump, nothing. There's still tree stumps at the front of the woods. There had been a stump my entire childhood, and never rotted down that fast. They were still there when I went to check the treehouse. Then that feeling came again, that of the hair rising, breathing on the back of my neck. And nothing, no one behind me. But the mosquitoes were about to drain me dry, so I didn't stay any longer. In relation to the woods, I find when I drive around my neighborhood or walk around it at night, I've noticed a recurring event happening. When I stand or stop at a stop sign close to one of the streetlights, it'll dim and nearly go out. I'm not sure if I'm haunted or not, but my brother was with me one night while playing Pokemon Go, and we stopped by a light, and within a minute of standing there, it dimmed and nearly went out. He noticed it, and gave a remark that this happens to him too. I think it could be because we lived so close to those woods, but I'm not sure if it's a glitch. And we became glitchy, being that we grew up next to such a strong event area, or if we are haunted. I've read a lot of neurology studies and such. Perks of befriending a college professor. Re-information. From my understanding of the human brain, it is possible for us to evolve further and extend our field of awareness. Have you ever noticed how aware spiders are? Find a playful, non-venomous one, and be kind to it. You'll see what I mean. But could an extra tiny bit of awareness be enough to feel thin parts of reality, where 2 or more realities soak through? But why would it follow me and my brother? Why does it feel evil, and why does it need so much energy? I do believe in spirits and negative energy staying around. I'm a man of science, and I believe these events just aren't detectable or measurable yet. But I can't deny what I felt. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Glitch in the Matrix Stories, episode 61. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use and sent in stories for use in this video. Well, I've been having a bad couple of days. Well, one day running into another day, slightly. I guess that's how it works. As I told some of you guys, by the way, this is nothing glitch related, so if you don't want to hear, you can move on. I'll yammer on anyway. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Anyway, so as you know, I purchased a bike recently that arrived faulty, so I had to send it back. And Amazon, for whatever reason, wouldn't pick it up, even though I have had Amazon delivery drivers bring packages to my door. Apparently, they are fully incapable of coming to my house to pick a package up. I guess maybe there's something wrong with their arms. They can only put things down, they can't pick them up. Not sure what the issue is there. Anyway, so I had to arrange, at my own time and expense, to get this thing back to them in order to get a refund. Allegedly, they'll also refund the costs of transport as well. Allegedly, we'll see. So, I contacted UPS. I thought, okay, I recognize the name. I believe they're quite a good company. I should have checked reviews first. And put the order through. It was meant to come, they were meant to come and pick it up on Wednesday. I'd placed the order late Saturday, so they were meant to come on Wednesday. Waited all day. I'd had no sleep, because I generally work through the night a lot of the time, and sleep till like mid-afternoon, I guess, a good time for me. And so it had no rest, because I didn't know when they were going to come, because they wouldn't let me, when placing the order, select a narrow enough window that would be convenient for me. So I was waiting all day. They don't show up. I contact them. There's information I should have been given that I didn't have. All I've got is this tracking number. They've got my information in their system, but they've got my address, my phone number, all that, but they have no information attached to this tracking number they sent me. Apparently this order I placed doesn't exist. And after jumping through a lot of hoops trying to get answers, the response was ultimately, well, You'll just have to go to the website and reschedule it. So I did. I went to Parcel Force and rescheduled it. At which point I did it yesterday. They picked it up today, and they let me choose a relatively narrow window for them to come and pick it up in. So that meant I was also able to get a good night's sleep, because I didn't have to wait on them because I knew they were coming at a certain time. And thankfully that fucking bike, sorry for the language, but that fucking bike is finally out of my house and on its way back to Amazon, where I shall get my money back, and then I'll go to Halfords and buy one like I should have done in the first place. And that, my friends, brings to a close this week's edition of Grumbles with Hellfreezer. Or Grumbles in the Matrix. Grumbles in the Matrix, maybe. Okay, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.